organised attempts then to exploit that data. So it's really critical that the government has a focus on this as well. Labour said that we do need to have a national focus on these questions. That's certainly what we would deliver. And we look to the government now to get a grip on these issues because, as you say, this is not the first time, disturbingly, that this has happened over recent years.
OK, the other news about this morning is that Rishi Sunak wants to impose this law on judges, that they would have to impose whole life orders on the most depraved killers, except in extremely limited circumstances.
Well, Labour has called for whole life tariffs for certain particularly heinous crimes. So if the government is finally listening on that, of course, that is encouraging. But I have to say that the Justice Secretary just a few months ago was actually telling judges to impose shorter sentences. And many judges have followed his advice. That's meant that serious criminals, like, for example, a people smuggler who assaulted an emergency worker, that actually he saw his sentence reduced. Now, the Justice Secretary said those sentences needed to be reduced because of overcrowding in prisons, because the Conservative government had not built sufficient prison places. So we seem to have complete chaos here from the soft on crime Conservatives. And unfortunately, currently, we're seeing 9 out of every 10 crimes actually going unprosecuted. That's the reality under the Conservatives. So, this may be a situation of more rhetoric from the Conservatives without that delivery, and unfortunately with criminal justice becoming weaker and weaker in the face of dangerous criminals.
OK, thank you. Just one final thought. We've been reporting on the Spanish women's football team, and we've seen the entire coaching staff resign except for the coach. Given everything that's happened in the last couple of days following that kiss controversy, do you think that the coach should go as well?
Well, I think ultimately the person who needs to go is the man who is at the heart of this controversy, who behaved appallingly, who obviously should go. I think there's no question about that. And, Labour's sister party in Spain has been really explicit that really he must go. He needs to stop fighting this. He needs to accept responsibility for it. I think that call is really clear. The call from the Lionesses has been clear. I have to say, when I reflect on this, I find this to be such an upsetting situation because, particularly the Lionesses' performance here in the UK, but obviously in Spain as well, this has been a great time for inspiring girls and women to get involved in team sport. And yet we've seen this awful series of incidents really sour that. So, of course, they need to take action right now. And the person at the centre of this controversy in particular, he just needs to go. No question about that.
OK, Annalise Dodds, thank you so much for talking to us.
Pleasure.
A gunman has gone on a shooting spree at a general store in Florida with a rifle painted with swastikas, killing 3 black people. Police say it was racially motivated, as our US correspondent Martha Kellner now reports.
It was a moment of personal devastation amid a weekend of gun violence in public places across America. In Jacksonville, Florida, they hold hands knowing that their community was specifically targeted. At a discount supermarket, 3 black people shot dead by a white man in his 20s.
Our own neighborhood, we can't even go to the store.
I'm emotional. It's unjust that we can't even walk on the sidewalks. We're not safe in any stores.
The gunman was armed with an automatic rifle with swastikas painted on in white. Afterwards, he killed himself. He left behind 3 manifestos outlining what police described as a disgusting ideology of hate.
He targeted a certain group of people, and that's black people. That's what he said he wanted to kill. And that's very clear. And I don't know that the targets were specific, but I know that any member of that race at that time was in danger.
What is going on? Oh, we've got people shooting.
Oh, my goodness.
Earlier in the weekend, shots rang out at this high school American football game in Oklahoma. Players fled the field while supporters tried to take cover in the stands. A 16-year-old boy was killed, 2 others wounded. And in Boston, a Caribbean carnival became a crime scene after 7 people were injured in a shooting there. The Chicago White Sox Stadium too experiencing horror in the stands as 2 women were wounded by a gunshot. Proof once more that watching sport, going shopping or to a carnival in America carries the risk of being caught in a gun violence epidemic. Martha Kellner, Sky News.
Thousands have gathered in Washington to mark the 60th anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. The iconic speech spoke out about discrimination and segregation faced by black people in the United States, issues that people are still fighting today.
They will not be able to turn back the clock. They want to stop blacks from voting. We're going to vote anyhow. No matter how hard you make it, we coming anyhow. They're going to try to put women back in the kitchen with an apron. We're not going back in the kitchen. We're not putting the apron back on. They're trying to tell gays, get back in the closet. We're not going back in the closet. We're going to lock the closet. We're going to stand up for who we are and where we are and what we are. Our fathers fought for this, and we're going to maintain it.
Well, now to the latest on the Spanish football kiss controversy. Spain's coach says the whole thing is a real nonsense. Jorge Vilda's comments came after his entire coaching staff resigned in support of Jenny Hermoso. He remains in his position. Vilda told Spanish sports sites La Marca the events that have taken place since Spain won the Women's World Cup for the first time in its history and to this day have been a real nonsense and have generated an unprecedented situation, tarnishing a well-deserved victory for our players and our country. Let's go live to our correspondent, Becky Cottrell. She's in Madrid for us this morning. And Becky, we're just talking to Labour's Annalise Dodds there, who was saying he's got to go. What's the sentiment there?
Well, I think Jorge Vilda will certainly be concerned. In fact, the fact that he released that statement and chose those words is significant. He is a man who has previously been a big ally of Luis Rubiales. He's also a man who's gone through his own controversy, his own disputes with the women's national squad, centering around his management style, the atmosphere that he's created. Their protests previously around Jorge Vilda very much kind of went under the radar. In fact, they were threatened for speaking out, threatened with not being selected for games and told to apologise for what they'd said. Fast forward to where we are now with Luis Rubiales, it's quite a different situation, basically because there has been so much publicity around that non-consensual kiss. I think for Luis Rubiales, I mean, I've heard him described as a dead man walking. The sense is that, you know, if he doesn't walk during the suspension period, he will be pushed. But this is about so much more than one man now. As I've mentioned, there are kind of the long-standing issues around the women's national squad, the team that has resigned yesterday, but also kind of the conversations that are being had in Spain now. Like many countries, Spain's gone through kind of Me Too moments, protests after sort of high-profile incidents of sexual abuse, the government pushing through reforms when it comes to gender equality, and now you're just adding into that the experience of these female sports players.
Becky, thank you so much. Becky in Madrid there for us. Time for the weather now.
Warm memories wherever you go.